Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today for you I have a mighty game review of Marvel's The Avengers. It's finally happened, folks. I'm finally getting off my ass and making a review for Marvel's The Avengers. And there's multiple reasons why I haven't done a review of the honest actual game yet. I was part of the beta, and I did a review of the beta, and it was more or less to get a baseline of what we would see, what changed between the beta and the actual release of the game. And honestly, there was quite a few things that actually still stood strong. A couple statements I made, etc., about the beta that would also end up standing pretty strong, pretty firm for the actual released game. Honestly, the game has finally gotten to the point where it's like, okay, I feel comfortable doing a review of this game, even though I got a feeling I'm going to end up probably coming back to reviewing this game maybe a year or so from now based on what changes, and I will dive into that here in a bit. But let's talk a bit about Marvel's The Avengers. The development team is Crystal Dynamics, with the publisher being Square-Enix. Now, its initial release would be actually August 14th, 2020. That being said, though, that was the betas. That wasn't the actual release of the game. It would actually be released for Windows PC, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Stadia September 4th, 2020. It is also going to be released on the next generation consoles, Xbox X and PlayStation 5. But that's not until 2021. Not exactly sure when. They really haven't alluded to that. But that's actually something I know they alluded to, the fact that they're kind of putting that on the back burner, as well as putting in cosplay or crossplay, so that way you can play with people on console as well as PC and Stadia, etc. Stadia market. Yeah, Stadia. I'm going to let that one go. So, the story. Let's talk a bit about the story. So, this is set after A-Day, which is an event where essentially there was a catastrophic event that happened, and the Avengers was, generally speaking, framed for the event. And S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of got caught in the crossfire as well, because S.H.I.E.L.D. was back in the Avengers, yada yada yada. And essentially you're taking the role of a character named Kamala Khan. She is also the most current version of Ms.Marvel. Understand Ms.Marvel also used to be Carol Danvers for you non-comic book fans. So she's the second one to take the mantle, third one actually to take the mantle of Ms.Marvel. And basically, because of the event, she was a normal person before the event, and now she is now a superhuman person called an Inhuman. And essentially, she does some background investigating, pretty much underground investigation, and found evidence that proves that the Avengers has been framed for A-Day, and that they're actually not the ones at fault. She kind of always believed that in her core, etc., etc. She gets the Avengers to reassemble, and they essentially strike back and go after the people that framed them, which is AIM. It's actually nice to see that AIM is actually a video game. That's actually not a group that's featured too often outside of the comic books. But enough of that. So anyway, the story. The story isn't bad. You know, I actually did enjoy the story. I seen people out there acting like it was the greatest in sliced bread or the second coming of Jesus Christ. I wouldn't go that far. That's really going far out there. But the story wasn't bad, and there was some really great high moments in the story. I didn't feel that there was really any low moments in the story. And going through the story mode, it takes roughly about 8 to 10 hours. I think it took me closer to 12, but I kind of searched every nook and cranny, and you know, I did every single mission, etc., etc.
Are you hugging me?
So it's going to be, if you try to go through it pretty quick or at a decent pace, you can get through it in about 8 hours. If you go searching for all the extras, you're probably looking at 10 or more hours.
I mean, I thought that.
that's enough covering the story. I'm going to dive on in here to how I feel about the game. And generally speaking, I feel that the graphics are actually really awesome. I like the look of the game. It looks great on PC. This is a review of the PC version of the game. This is on an RTX 2070 video card. And to me, it looks good. This is not maximized graphics. I tend not to run my games at max graphics because I don't feel like putting stress on my GPU while trying to record game footage and stuff like that. And even not on the absolute maximum graphics. The game does look pretty damn good. So the sounds are good. I especially like the Captain America sounds. You know, when he's hitting enemies with a shield, you know, it gives that like metallic thump. You know, stuff like that. The way the shield sounds when it's throwing, the sounds you get from doing blocks. The hammer, Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, sounds different when it hits stuff. You still got a metal thump, but it's not the same as Captain America's shield sound. It's a different type of sound. The way Hulk grunts at times when fighting, you know, different types of stuff like that. Some of the one-liners are pretty good, although some of them not so good. But generally speaking, the sounds sound good. The voice acting, I feel, is generally fairly good. The music in the game is pretty superhero-like. You know, it kind of makes you feel almost like you're watching a movie, I guess you could say, but not really. It's kind of hard to explain. Co-op mode is fun solo and with friends. I know a lot of people were going off about how co-op mode was really more or less a friends-only experience. Guys, I'm not going to lie to you. I actually have fun with the co-op, playing by myself as well with friends. I don't know if I actually enjoy the co-op more by myself or playing with friends. You know, there's those times where I want to play the game with people, and I really want to play with people at those times. And then there's times where I just want to play by myself, beat up some bad guys, you know, throw my shield around, blast some people with the repulsor rays, etc. And I don't have to worry about it. So generally speaking, I would say the biggest majority of my game, though, was playing solo. I really don't like playing this with random people. I like playing the game with people I know when I do play the game with people. There's a lot of stuff here that you can clearly tell is inspired by the comic books, which I feel is really good in itself. To me, they're taking more from the comic books than you can say they are from the movies. That is actually a really nice approach. Now, I know there is some comparisons here to some of the stuff you see in the movies, some of the stuff that Captain America does. As an example, is definitely stuff you see in the movies. That being said, though, the movies is also inspired by the comic books. I think the biggest reason for the comparisons between the two mediums is because, honestly, the movies over the years have gotten more attention and it's actually overshadowed the comic books. But, folks, I'm a comic book fan from the late 80s, early 90s. I have comic books that date all the way back to the 40s and even the 50s. So, yeah, I'm a comic book guy. I got a massive collection, and I compare this game more to what I've seen in comic books than I have the movies. Although, yes, there's, once again, as I stated, there's stuff that's very comparable. The superhero moves, I feel, are pretty good. Generally speaking, it makes you feel like you're playing a superhero. Thor attacks the way you would imagine Thor attacking. Captain America's move sets more or less around playing as Captain America. Black Widow feels like Black Widow. Iron Man feels like Iron Man, etc. And all the characters feel different. To me, honestly, Captain America is the best because he feels kind of like the Swiss Army knife. He's not necessarily the best hand-to-hand combat guy, nor necessarily the best ranged guy, but he kind of shoots in the middle of both. Where Iron Man, on the other hand, he feels like a superb ranged guy, but he is, generally speaking, not very good at hand-to-hand combat. And then you got Hulk, which just kind of bum rushes in there and takes a beating and dishes out a beating. So all the characters feel different in their own ways. Black Widow feels pretty good. She doesn't feel like she hits the hardest to me. Comparing to my other characters, she's definitely far from hitting the hardest. However, she's actually one of the faster attack speed characters. And, you know, just all the characters feel different in their own unique ways. And that is a nice pace. It helps break up the monotony of if you're grinding Captain America all the time. It gets kind of boring, actually, because, yeah, well, the game's fairly repetitive. But I'll dive into that here in a bit. And it's got an original story to it. You know, I know some of the story elements of the game they're doing in the comic books to kind of support the game and flesh out the canon of the game itself. But honestly, when it comes to the comic books versus the MCU versus the game, the game kind of stands in its own category with its sort of own, its sort of own canon, if you will, that is inspired by the comic books, but they've kind of made some changes to work in their story. Now, this is kind of like a neutral point for me. Some characters feel great and some characters feel lackluster, in all honesty. Hulk kind of feels lackluster, Thor kind of feels lackluster, and it's not one of those they're lackluster in certain areas. Like Iron Man, like I said earlier, he doesn't feel as good in hand-to-hand combat as he does in range. However, that being said, Thor and Hulk both just generally feel lackluster, especially for who they are. And I know a part of that is because of game balance. You know, they want to try and make the characters feel all balanced from one another, so that way Hulk and Thor is not necessarily way better than, say, Captain America. And in all facts, well, Hulk and Thor generally would be better than Captain America per se, in a lot of aspects. And there's some aspects that makes Captain America better. And that's the same way with Iron Man, Black Widow, etc. And that's kind of like one of the problems with this game is you have multiple different types of characters with multiple different types of move sets, power sets, etc. A lot of the characters, you know, it's trying to broad base its characters, essentially fighting abilities and strengths and weaknesses and etc. And they want to add more characters in. You know, this review is being done on the eve of Kate Bishop being released, who's an archer. You know, how well can she translate to the game if you say you have the game favoring the characters like Hulk and Thor? So they don't want to penalize anyone for playing the characters that they want to play. And they also, it feels like to me, they want to make the game user-friendly. Because obviously you can see in the movies and even the comic books that, you know, some of the Avengers are more useful against certain opponents. You know, you let people like Black Widow and Captain America deal with the smaller bad guys, while you have like Thor and Hulk deal with the really big badasses that Captain America and Black Widow can't really deal with, you know. But they balance it out so that even Captain America can be useful in those situations to make it more user-friendly. And it does make the game at times feel like it lacks because it just doesn't feel awesome to play certain characters. Now I'm going to get into what I feel is negative about this game, and a lot of this stuff honestly carries over from the beta. The game is extremely repetitive.
These guys just keep coming.
Actually, I feel this game is more repetitive than honestly the beta was, because honestly the beta was a beta. You were only kind of getting a test of the game, or taste of the game, and here now you have the full game release. It's a $60 AAA title, and it is really repetitive. You tend to do the same missions over and over and over again to grind out the different types of items you need for upgrades, to level your characters up, to get the different pieces of equipment you need so you can make your character better, etc. And honestly, it makes the game feel extremely repetitive. And the other part of making the game feel repetitive is the assets are way overused, folks. You know, some of the missions, it is hard to tell the difference from one mission to another. And some of the missions are the same places, same maps, just in a different format or a different approach or different objectives, but it ends up being the same mission. Even the enemies themselves, yes, there's a wide array of different types of enemies. If you consider that, you know, the Adaptoid has 4 or 5 different models. Same way with the, you know, same way with the different exobots here that I'm fighting. You know, there's some, the proto-synthoids are pretty cheap and generic, but as you get to the more advanced synthoids, they start actually essentially repeating one another. And as you can see with character models, generally speaking, except for some color changes or maybe some bits added here, bits added there, they've even reused some of the villain models over and over again, and even for the primary characters. When it comes to the skins, you have multiple skins of the same skin, but it's just some different color templates and stuff like that were used in certain places. So yeah, assets are just way overused. And listen, I've played games where assets were reused repeatedly. You know, I used to be a hardcore DC Universe Online player. Okay, what I'm going to explain is there it worked. And the reason it worked for DC Universe Online is because DC Universe Online had a fuck ton of assets. They could reuse assets and it not really hurt the game too much. Here, they reused assets. They made the game really grindy, so you're doing the same things over and over again, and you start to realize, wait a minute, I've seen this same location, same building in, you know, 8 out of 10 of the damn missions in the game. So that's, you know, I feel that's negative because it ruins the immersion, it ruins the game experience, at least for me personally. Missions can't get boring, and you know, that's the other thing about the game being extremely repetitive.
Shit, you're alive.
Grinding all the time to get your characters up there. Once you do a hive so many times, you don't want to do hives anymore. Once you do so many runs in the Arctic, the Arctic Vault to get equipment, you don't want to do it anymore. Because it gets boring. You've seen it multiple times.
Why aren't you letting go?
I would like to see statistics on the different locations I've ran and how many times I've ran those locations. Just so I could publish them here and just show you. See how repetitive and grindy this game is?
Gotta get you out of here.
Combat lock on can be a little squiffy at times. That's the next thing. Sometimes you
Did he survive?
want to change the direction of your attack. You want to attack a different opponent, and the game just decides, no, you're going to attack this opponent because
I could use your help.
for some odd weird reason you still got some kind of weird lock on. Now, that's not a major difference or major pain in the butt. It can be. And basically what that's got to do with is it's a situational thing. Sometimes it's not a problem. Sometimes it is a problem. But it, you know, just the way it's set up, it kind of feels like the game takes control of my character and decides what my character is going to do instead of me. There's still bugs in the game that were here from day one. And yes, folks, I'm talking day one as beta day one, not release day one. There are some bugs that have been improved and have been fixed. There's been a couple new bugs. They're still working on the bugs, definitely. That being said, there's still some bugs and stuff in the game that is just like, it just ruins the experience, guys. And then finally, microtransactions. God, I'm going to complain about microtransactions again. I'm only going to touch base about this. Okay, I've already done like 3 different videos now, including the beta, ragging on them for the microtransactions. And listen, I've gotten, microtransaction-wise, this is one thing I'm going to put in their favor for microtransactions, is the microtransactions, generally speaking, or more or less massively speaking, is for cosmetics. Emotes, takedowns, different types of moves, etc., costumes. But that being said, folks, the game is not really in a good state. and they're still pushing the microtransactions. You know, there was a point there where the game was so bugged that it was unplayable for me. I could not connect with friends. I could not do really anything in the game. Had problems with the game crashing, DCs, etc. There was a 3-week period there where they did not release a patch. But god damn it, they released new skins every week. Every week they release new skins, but not every week we get bug fixes. We've gotten very little in the way of new content. They've had to delay new content. You know, Kate Bishop is going to be released tomorrow, folks. She was supposed to be released in October. They delayed it for quality control, which I've explained profusely how I do appreciate that fact. I'd rather have the quality control. But they've actually delayed her twice. She was originally supposed to be released in October, and then they pushed her back to November. And now it's December, folks, and we're finally going to get her. Let alone there's been release of information saying we're not even getting all the content with her that was promised. Folks, why the fuck am I getting new skins every week and not getting new content? Content that was promised.
There it is. A vital link in
okay, let's chill on some of the crystal dynamics. Let's chill on some of the microtransactions here, and how about we get the game in a really good, a much better state than it is right now. Let's get some new content out there instead of seeing 3 or 4 new skins and new emotes every week. You know, I really don't want to see any more new microtransactions. I want to see new content for the game. I mean, by now, we were supposed to have Kate Bishop and Hawkeye, and supposed to be looking forward to the release of Black Panther and Wakanda. And we're not even getting any of that. We were supposed to have a better picture of when we would see crossplay added into the game, and we're not even looking at that. You know, and a lot of people are going out there saying about how the game is dead already, the Steam numbers, blah, blah, blah. Well, I understand why, folks. I know I sound negative at this moment, and that's actually the most negativity I got towards this game. You know, that's all my negative aspects right there. So I feel there needs to be a better focus on what the game really needs over what the game doesn't really need, and the game doesn't really need more cosmetics. The game needs bug fixes and more content, and that will keep the game more lively and get people more interested in the game. Either way, so do I feel the game is worth it or not? Well, I mean, right now the game is still $60. It's a $60 AAA title that is, honestly, in my opinion, not worth the $60, and the only people who are probably really going to like this game is the people who are big-time comic book nerds. Because that being said, generally, folks, this game is a looter shooter, or more or less a beat 'em up, and you can actually get that experience somewhere else. And at this point, it's going to be better somewhere else. It's going to be better, say, playing Destiny 2, because it's, you know, it's got the DLCs, it's got additional content, etc.
They've set up some kind of blockade.
Same way with Warframe. I mean, Warframe has many more years out on this game. But that being said, this game feels like a half-hearted cash grab at moments. And personally, I would not recommend this game at this time. I would say the only way I could recommend it to someone is if they were going to get it on sale for like 20 or 30 bucks. And then I would definitely recommend the game. And folks, this is a person speaking from the point of view of, I pre-ordered this game, I paid $80 for the deluxe edition, and honestly, I am not 100% happy, or I would say at best I'm 60% happy with the product I got. But anyway, folks, that's actually going to be it for me. Thank you very much for watching this video. I know it took a while, and I tend to take a while doing these review videos, but I want to try and give as much information as detailed as I can so people understand the point of view I am coming from. I'm not trying to give you a 5-minute review, you know, like some of the big timers are. I'm trying to give you detailed information that may actually sway your opinion on if you're going to buy a game or not. Anyway, folks, once again, thank you very much for tuning in. I do appreciate your time, and have yourself a wonderful day.